used to think marriage meant safety. A place where you could drop your guard. Where love was enough to keep out every shadow. But I was wrong. My name is Daniel, and for 3 years I thought my wife Claire was my anchor. She was warm, bright, and carried herself with a confidence that drew people in. I admired that about her. Until I realized how easily that same confidence could be weaponized. It started with small things. Mentions of her past that seemed innocent at first. She would bring up Alex, her ex-boyfriend, as though he were just another chapter in her history. A joke here, a memory there. I told myself it didn't matter. Everyone has a past, and I had no reason not to trust her. But the way she said his name carried something more, like a faint glow she couldn't hide. One evening, we were out at dinner with friends when Alex's name slipped into conversation again. Claire laughed a little too freely, her eyes glinting as she recalled a story of their wild college nights. My stomach tightened. I didn't want to be that man, the jealous husband, but the unease wouldn't leave me. On the ride home, I asked her softly, "Do you have to bring him up so much?" She turned her head, smirk tugging at her lips. "What, are you jealous?" she teased. I swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. "It just feels disrespectful sometimes, Claire. You don't see me talking about old flames, do you?" Her laugh cut through the dark car like a blade. "Oh, Daniel. You're so insecure. Jealous over a man I dumped years ago? That's pathetic." The word stung. Not just because of what she said, but because of how she said it. Like my feelings were a punchline. That night, lying awake beside her, I realized something I'd been too blind to see. My wife didn't just dismiss my pain, she mocked it. And that was a wound no vow could heal. The next few weeks felt like a slow unraveling. Every time Claire mentioned Alex, even casually, it felt less like a slip and more like a test. She'd watch me out of the corner of her eye, waiting for a reaction. When I didn't give her one, she'd push harder. One night over wine, she leaned back in her chair, twirling the stem of her glass between her fingers. "You know," she said, her voice dripping with mischief. "Alex always told me I had a way of making men jealous. Guess he was right." I stared at her, unsure whether to laugh or to break. "Why do you do this?" I asked quietly. Her brow arched. "Do what?" "Rub it in. Mock me. Pretend my feelings don't matter." She let out a sharp laugh. "Daniel, you really need to grow a thicker skin. If you can't handle a name from the past, maybe you're not cut out for marriage." That was the moment I felt something inside me harden. Love had once made me patient, forgiving, willing to overlook the little cuts. But now those cuts were bleeding me dry. I began to see her not as my partner, but as someone who thrived on keeping me small. Days turned into weeks, and my silence became her playground. She'd say things like, "Alex used to take me to nicer places than this." Or at least he didn't sulk when I teased him. Always followed by that laugh. The one that carried no warmth, only superiority. I didn't shout. I didn't fight. Instead, I started saving. A little from each paycheck, tucked away where she couldn't find it. At night, while she slept soundly beside me, I would sit at the edge of the bed, scrolling through flight options. The idea was a seed at first, but it grew quickly. A one-way ticket, a clean break, an escape from the cage of her mockery. The last straw came one Saturday afternoon, when she scrolled through her phone and casually said, "Funny, Alex messaged me today. Guess some men just never move on." She glanced up, waiting for the storm in my eyes. But instead of anger, she saw calm determination. That night, I booked the ticket. A one-way flight to Denver, where an old college friend had offered me a place to stay if I ever needed it. The confirmation email felt like the first real breath I'd taken in months. For the next week, I moved through life like an actor in his final performance, smiling at dinner, nodding at her sarcastic comments, pretending I hadn't already stepped out of the marriage in my heart. Claire didn't notice. Or maybe she didn't care. On Friday evening, she was in rare form. We were supposed to meet friends for dinner, but before leaving, she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her earrings. "You know," she said with a smirk, "I think I finally tamed you." The old Daniel would have been fuming over Alex by now. "Look at you, quiet obedient. Guess you learned who's in charge." I slipped my folded jacket over my arm, my expression unreadable. "Maybe you're right. I said softly. She mistook my calm for defeat and smiled wider. What she didn't know was that in my bag, tucked between neatly folded clothes, were my signed divorce papers. I'd left copies with my lawyer earlier that day. We never made it to dinner. Instead, I told her I had an errand to run and would meet her there. She waved me off, clearly pleased with herself. That was the last time she saw me as her husband. The next morning, while she called and texted, wondering why I hadn't come home, I was already thousands of feet in the air, the city shrinking beneath me. Her messages ranged from confusion to anger to panic. But by then it didn't matter. She would open the envelope on the kitchen counter soon enough, the one marked with her name in my handwriting. Inside, my farewell letter and the divorce papers she never thought I'd have the courage to sign. For years, she mocked my jealousy, twisting it into weakness. But when I finally walked away, she learned the truth. Jealousy wasn't my downfall, it was my warning sign. And ignoring it cost her everything.